One of the best practices as a buyer is to issue LOIs very frequently. From a legal standpoint, I think it's important to note that LOIs are barely worth the paper that they're printed on. And in fact, as a buyer, you don't really give up much at all when you issue an LOI. But as a seller, you give up a lot. You give up exclusivity, which is I am not allowed to talk to any buyer other than you. So that's a big give. As a buyer, we don't really give a whole lot, but we get a lot. What do we get? We quickly surface your valuation expectations. If I think you're worth 5 million and you think you're worth 50 million, I'm just going to walk away that day and I'm going to save my valuable time because the bridge between us is just too long. So I quickly surface valuation expectations. The other thing I do is I quickly surface structural expectations. Most people who have never sold a company before understandably think that I'm going to get 100% of my proceeds in cash. But as you know well, John, that is very, very rarely the case. And so when they see a very official looking legal document that says, I want a 10% roll and a 30% seller note, you quickly surface whether that is even palatable for them. And so as a result, issuing offers with a high degree of frequency is one of the best time-saving tools that we have as buyers. And to your point, it's one thing for us to verbally discuss valuation, but there's just something about seeing it on a very official looking legal document that tends to just separate the real sellers from the tire kickers.
Such a good point. How did you structure your acquisition? What percentage up front? How did you structure it? Seller's note versus earnout, or what was the structure?
Yeah, so we kicked around a bunch of different structures with the sellers. Ultimately, what we landed on is, I believe it was like 60 or 70% of the cash up front. That was funded by a combination of equity and debt. And then the remainder in the form of a seller's note, which I believe amortized over a period of 3 to 4 years and earned some level of interest that was many, many multiples of the prevailing interest rates at the time, which were basically zero. So they viewed it as a way to effectively reinvest in their business, earn a reasonable rate of return. And from my standpoint, I viewed it as a great tool for alignment of incentives between myself and the seller, because like many small businesses, I saw some key person risk in the seller. I wanted to make sure that he had the proper incentives to not disappear off to a beach the day after closing.